But we are coming on the air right now to report this news that broke about an hour or so ago, maybe an hour and a half ago, that a former campaign advisor, foreign policy advisor for President Trump, George Papadopoulos, has pled guilty to lying to the FBI. This just came out today. The plea deal was signed on October 5th. It was only released by the Mueller investigation today. This is part of the Mueller investigation, and they apparently released this document today, if I'm getting that right. So we might wonder why it was released today if the deal was on October 5th. I saw somebody with a theory about that. I'll show you in a little bit. But what I wanted to show, so he is the third person now charged with a crime in the Mueller investigation, Paul Manafort and Paul Manafort's associate, Rick. I'm totally losing my memory here, and I can't remember now. Who was it? Rick who? This is what happens when too much is going on. Rick Gates. They were indicted, but George Papadopoulos not only was charged with the crime, he pled guilty to this crime of lying to the FBI. But what I first want to do is talk about what exactly he is charged with and what he pled guilty to and what the indictment says. When the story first came out, I heard it and I was like, oh, that doesn't sound too good. And then I got the indictment and I started reading through the indictment. And what struck me as I was reading through the indictment was how different the media was portraying this story than what the indictment says. To listen to the media, it made it sound, so what the media makes it sound like is that this guy who was doing some work for the Trump campaign as a foreign policy advisor, the media makes it sound like George Papadopoulos was told by the Russians they had dirt on Hillary and that he ran to the campaign and tried to set up these meetings so that the Russians could give this dirt on Hillary to the campaign. That's exactly what the media makes it sound like, because I was watching a lot of media coverage this morning and I've been reading tweets and stuff, and this is what it sounds like. And I started reading the indictment, and that wasn't really what was going on. And another weird thing was that the whole thing about the Hillary dirt was kind of tangential to the whole indictment. So I'm going to get into that in a second. But, so I do think be careful when you're watching mainstream media coverage of this story today, because I think it's being portrayed as like, it's not being portrayed very accurately, the story, and as a result, its significance for the Trump campaign and for President Trump is not being portrayed that accurately, I don't think. So I'm kind of disappointed with the way the mainstream media is covering the story today. So I want to talk to you about what actually is in the indictment. We're going to look at that next. So if while we're on the air you have comments, I want to hear what you have to say about this. Write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. I'll be reading your comments shortly. So here's the actual indictment here. Before I get actually into it though, here's the indictment right here. So we're going to look at that in a second. But let me take a second and see if I can summarize for you what the indictment basically says. So as I understand the indictment, I read through it. What basically happened is this. Early in the Trump campaign, well, relatively early, around March, they had some different foreign policy advisors working for them. These were not people who were in the office all day, every day at the campaign. So, for example, President Trump in an interview in March of 2016 named 5 foreign policy advisors. I think the person asking wanted to know, like, well, who's advising you? So he named 5 foreign policy advisors. One of them was Carter Page, and one of them was this guy, George Papadopoulos. Now, note that Carter Page was named as an advisor. If you know anything, if you've done reading on Carter Page, you know his contact with the campaign was not that strong. So he was named as a foreign policy campaign advisor, but he was not that involved with the campaign. So George Papadopoulos was named in the same interview as a campaign advisor, but at least from what the indictment is telling us, he was not such a big deal in the campaign, and he certainly was not involved in their day-to-day operations that much, if at all. So, but anyways, he was named as a foreign policy advisor in this interview with President Trump, and he was named by the campaign, used by the campaign as a foreign policy advisor. So, in March of 2016, he finds out that the campaign wants to use him as a foreign policy advisor. Okay, and then he also hears, and this is from the indictment. He also hears that the campaign really is looking to improve relations with Russia. That if President Trump gets to be president, they want to have better relationship with Russia. So he hears that, and he hears he's going to be an advisor. And then soon after that, he meets with someone who he believes to have close contacts with the Russian government. And what he does when he starts meeting with this person is he starts trying to use that contact he has to like set up meetings between the Trump campaign or Trump himself with Russians. So you see in the indictment, he's trying to set up a meeting with campaign officials and with Russian officials. He's trying to set up a meeting with President Trump and President Putin. So, and the actual document says this. It seems to suggest he's trying to do this to help himself. Let's see if I can find the exact part where it says this. Right here. So if you look here, it says, so he meets this guy, the professor, who's called the professor, who's the person who says they have Russian contacts. And if you look down at the bottom of page 3, it says, defendant Papadopoulos was interested in the professor because, among other reasons, the professor claimed to have substantial connections with Russian government officials, which defendant Papadopoulos thought could increase his importance as a policy advisor to the campaign. So, again, basically what happens is George Papadopoulos, the campaign says, we want to use you as a foreign policy advisor. He meets with this person who says they know Russian officials, and Papadopoulos believes this person's close with Russian officials. And he starts trying to set meetings up with Russian officials and people from the campaign and perhaps President Trump too. Now, he starts trying to set up these meetings, But he starts trying to set up these meetings, and I'm trying to get the exact timeline here. But basically, he's having these contacts. Let me just get the. So look, this is in early April too. So he has this meeting in March with. He meets in March with this person, the professor who says they have Russian contacts. And then in April, he's writing to the campaign about it. So it says there, in early April 2016, defendant Papadopoulos sent multiple emails to other members of the campaign's foreign policy team regarding his contacts with the Russians and his outreach to Russia. Right above that, it says, Papadopoulos worked with the professor and the female Russian national to arrange a meeting between the campaign and the Russian government. So he's already trying to set up meetings with campaign officials and these Russian officials. But we've heard nothing about Hillary Dirt email yet. So basically, again, to summarize here, this guy Papadopoulos, campaign says, we want you to work for us as a campaign advisor. He starts having contact with people who he thinks knows Russian officials. He starts trying to set up meetings with these people in the campaign, with Russian officials in the campaign. None of this involves Hillary email yet. Then at the end of April, there's one meeting where this contact, who he's been meeting with for like over a month now, this contact says to Papadopoulos, hey, we have some dirt on Hillary. Does he say emails or dirt? Let me just see this here. I'll have to look this up later for the specifics. I think they said they have thousands of emails, they have dirt. So at the end of April, he hears this, okay? So he's already been trying to set up the meetings. The email wasn't originally part of setting up the meetings. Then the indictment says at the end of April, this contact, who this guy has already been meeting with, who supposedly knows Russian government officials, mentions one time the Russians have some dirt on Hillary. They have some emails. According to the indictment, that's the last we hear of this. The Hillary emails never come up in any of the meetings this guy Papadopoulos has with his Russian contacts. Again, they never come up again. And while the indictment says for the next couple months, Papadopoulos keeps emailing the campaign, trying to set up meetings between the campaign officials and Trump and the Russians. The indictment never says that Papadopoulos mentions the Hillary emails and the Hillary dirt to the Trump campaign. So again, the way the mainstream media is spinning the story, because I've watched it, is the Russians go to this guy and they say, we have dirt on Hillary. And he runs to the Trump campaign and tries to set up all these meetings with the Trump campaign and the Russians to get this dirt on Hillary because he's trying to collude with them. That's how it's being portrayed in the media. If you look at the indictment, he was already meeting with this guy. What the indictment basically says is this guy wanted to help himself become a more important foreign policy advisor. He knew that the Trump campaign was trying to get better relations with Russia. They wanted that to be like, it was important to a future Trump administration to have better relations with Russia. Knowing that, he met this contact who supposedly had connections with the Russian government and thought, oh, well, I'm going to try to set up meetings because what the indictment implies is he was trying to set up these meetings to help himself become a bigger advisor, and also because he was trying to set up these meetings because he knew that the Trump campaign eventually wanted to have better contacts with Russia, and if Trump won, they would want to have a better relationship with Russia. That's why he was trying to set up the meetings. Then, a month or so into doing all of this, he heard one time from the Russian contact he'd already been meeting with, who never mentioned this before. Oh, by the way, we have this dirt on Hillary. We have thousands of emails. Then, according to the indictment, this is never brought up again when he meets with this Russian contact. And the indictment never has this guy bringing up those emails and the Hillary dirt to the Trump campaign when he tries to set up a meeting. So eventually, after all of this, and he spends a couple months trying to set up meetings between the Russian officials and Trump, and Russian officials, the Trump campaign. Those meetings never happen, according to there's no record of the meetings in the indictment. It might have said they never happened. I have to look at it again, but we have no record of those meetings ever happening. And I think the mainstream media is reporting they didn't happen, the ones he tried to set up. So the FBI ended up interviewing him, and what he lied about is he said that these contacts he had with the Russians, this contact he had with this person, the professor who supposedly knew Russian officials, and he also had contact with this Russian woman who he thought was Putin's niece. But anyways, these contacts related to these people who supposedly knew members of the Russian government. Papadopoulos told the FBI, oh, none of these contacts happened while I was working for the campaign. They all happened before the campaign. So he told the FBI he had these meetings before the campaign and not while he was working with the campaign, which was just false. The meetings were during the campaign, and he was trying to set up meetings with the Trump campaign and the Russian government during the campaign. So he lied about that to the FBI. And that's what he pled guilty to. He pled guilty to lying to the FBI about when these meetings happened. And he also might have lied about the email stuff. Let's see here. False statements. He said they occurred before the campaign. They occurred during the campaign. He said they occurred before he was working for the campaign. They occurred when he was working for the campaign. He told the FBI that this person he met with, he thought this person was like a nothing. But actually, he thought this person was connected with the Russian government. So he lied to the FBI about what he believed the connections that this person he was meeting with were. Let's see. He lied about, there was this other woman he was talking to with, and he lied about what he was talking about with her. He said he exchanged emails with her saying basically, hi, how are you? But in fact, he was talking to her about trying to set up a meeting between Russian officials and people from the Trump campaign. So these are the things he lied about when these meetings happened and what they were discussing in the meetings. So fine, he lied about that to the FBI. He pled guilty about that. So that's true. That's all true. But if you really look at what the indictment says, it doesn't say, the mainstream media is portraying this as like it's this advisor who was colluding with the Russian government to like try to get dirt on Hillary to the campaign. It was part of some big plot. And from the indictment, it doesn't seem like a plot at all. From the indictment, it seems like the Trump campaign never told this dude to set up these meetings. The Trump campaign never told this dude to get dirt on Hillary. For all we know from the indictment, this guy never even told the Trump campaign about that one time his contacts told him they had dirt on Hillary. And the dirt on Hillary thing that he was told about once by his contact doesn't seem to factor into his trying to set up meetings with between the Trump campaign and the Russian officials at all. Because he was trying for like at least a month before he heard about this dirt on Hillary to set up these meetings. So the purpose of the meetings was not to pass on dirt. And even when he heard this one time from his Russian contact about this supposed dirt on Hillary they had, according to the indictment, he never mentioned it to the Trump campaign. The indictment goes through different emails he sent to the Trump campaign trying to set up different types of meetings, and the indictment never once says he emailed the campaign and said, look, they have some dirt on Hillary, so you should meet with them. It never says that in the whole indictment. So, and also another thing about the indictment is it shows him lying to the Trump campaign. It says, for example, he told the Trump campaign that this contact of his had introduced him to an ambassador when he had never actually met the ambassador. He thought at the time he might get introduced to the ambassador, but he had never met the ambassador. So there are a couple times in here where he just lies to the Trump campaign about the nature of his contacts. So it bothers me to see the mainstream media coverage of this because it's just not accurate. It just go watch it. It makes it sound like this guy was that the whole purpose in trying to set up meetings between the Russian government and Trump campaign was to pass along this dirt when that's just not supported by the indictment. And the Hillary dirt thing, where his contact told him the Russian government had dirt on Hillary and had emails, it is such a small part of this indictment. It's mentioned one time. It's mentioned by his contact once after they've already been meeting for weeks, and it never comes up again. And this person, according to the indictment, never mentions it to the Trump campaign. So it is just this tangential aspect of this whole thing, but if you see the media coverage, it's like Trump advisor met with Russians who told them they have dirt on Hillary, and then he tried to set up a meeting, which is just not an accurate portrayal of what happened. And I'm just reading the indictment. So, and I get angry when this kind of stuff happens because it's like, if you're going to report on this stuff, just read the indictment. It's not even that long. It's like how many, look, I'll show you. It's not even that, it's just, you can go read through it. These people, these big news networks have millions of dollars and staffs of people who can read through it. So you don't even really have to read through it's not that, you can just skim through it and see what it's talking about. Well, you kind of have to read through it, but it's only like 13 pages. And it's just ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. Again, and you look, now you might still say, oh, it's really bad that this was a campaign advisor to President Trump and he was lying to the FBI. Fine. I'm not saying anything about his lying. I'm just saying all I'm talking about is the way this is portrayed in the media versus the actual story. So anyways, so that's my little summary. I can go through specifically some of this stuff if you'd like, but I wanted to just get it out there. I would encourage you to read through this indictment yourself and see what I'm talking about. I posted the indictment on my Twitter. It's at Lookner, at Lookner. If you go back about 7 or 8 tweets, you'll see I say, here's the indictment. You can just go read it yourself. So that's my thought on this. But anyway, so I want to get that out there. I'm happy to talk about more detail about the indictment, but I first want to hear what you have to say, if you have any thoughts on this. And maybe you think this is like a giant deal. What do you think? I certainly don't think this indictment provides any evidence that there was any organized collusion attempt by the Trump campaign to work with the Russians to subvert the election process. This, now, all it shows is that, and it doesn't even show that this one advisor was trying to like get dirt on Hillary to the Trump campaign. It literally doesn't even show that, because it's mentioned once to him, and as far as the indictment says, he never brought it up with the Trump campaign. So it's like, you'd think if there was a big effort to get dirt on Hillary from the Russians, he would have brought it up to the Trump campaign, and the Trump campaign would have like jumped all over it. And also, the Trump campaign never took any of these meetings with Russian officials that he was trying to set up. They certainly didn't seem eager to meet with these Russian officials. And he keeps emailing. If you look at the indictment, he emails the campaign over and over and over again over a period of like 3 months. I wouldn't be surprised if people in the campaign were like, why is this like weird guy? Why is he acting all crazy and emailing us like every week about this? Like, we've already told him, like, stop emailing us. I don't know. Not to say they did say that, but he really does continually email the campaign again and again and again, trying to set up these meetings, which suggests, and the indictment itself provides this as a motive. It says he was trying to improve his status as an advisor. It really seems like what might have been the case here is this guy just thought like, oh, if I can set up this meeting, I'll be like way more important in the campaign. That could have happened because he just keeps trying to set up these meetings, and the Trump campaign doesn't set up the meeting. So, which to me suggests that, if anything, it's evidence that they're not trying to have these meetings. Because if they were, they could have just gone through this dude and say, yeah, set up the meeting. Anyways, so I'd like to hear what you think about this. Write to me at Lookner on Twitter, at Lookner. Also, if you enjoy our coverage, please consider making a donation, because we are viewer supported. We rely on your support to stay on the air, your donation. So if you want to donate, you can go to RSB. You can actually go to the YouTube chat right next to the broadcast and click at the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat. There's a little $ there. Or you can go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. And thank you so much to the moderators for being in the chat today. We have in the YouTube chat and on the website. And in the YouTube chat, we have JC Guinevere there right now. So Barbara is there, or was there. So I want to get to your comments. And at 1 p.m., we do have it Right Side Broadcasting at 1 p.m. There's going to be a White House press briefing with Sarah Sanders. We're covering that on Right Side Broadcasting. It's on a different stream, so when it gets close to 1, you can go over to that stream. I'll probably stop before then, and then I'll be on for the post show after the press briefing. Patriot of Truth writes in, this is exactly why we need Right Side. And I'm not taking a stance here. I'm just telling you what the indictment says, which is not being told to you by the media, because I've been watching the media today and they haven't been talking about what the indictment actually says. Stu Redmond says, well, I posted a tweet that said the indictment says he lied about trying to set up meetings with the Russians during the campaign. It doesn't say the meetings ever happened. And Stu Redmond replied, true, but the acknowledgement by a campaign advisor gives lie to the fake Trump claim that the campaign had nothing to do with Russia. But this indictment, I mean, if you want to say, well, an advisor trying to set up meetings with Russia that aren't taken by the campaign, and he's trying to set them up because he thinks it'll help his own position in the campaign, possibly, and also because the Trump campaign said that they want to have better relations with Russia. I mean, I don't find anything very nefarious in all of that, so... Making America Great Again says, seems to me like Papadopoulos is a DNC plant into the Trump campaign team to ensure there was collusion. It also seems it didn't work. The thing is, though, Making America Great Again, the behavior of Papadopoulos isn't even somebody who's trying to, like, it doesn't even seem like somebody who's trying to get nefarious collusion going. If you look at, because again, he doesn't even bring up, he is told one time by this person he's meeting with repeatedly, oh, and we have dirt on Hillary, thousands of emails on her. The indictment never has him bringing that up with the Trump campaign. If you thought he was really trying to foster nefarious collusion, you would think that what he would do is, as soon as he heard that thing about the Clinton emails, he would constantly be messaging the campaign saying, oh, they say they have all this dirt and all these emails. And that's just not here. It's not here in the indictment. And again, I think the notification just went out. We are going to be covering the Sarah Sanders press briefing, and it starts at 1 p.m. So you can go to that after this, and then I will be on for the post show after that. Let me just show you real quick, just a couple of things I saw in the briefing. And in case you want to look at the indictment, I just want to show you where these things are at. So here it is. Timeline of selected events. In early March 2016, that's when he learns he would be a foreign policy advisor to the campaign. Okay, so he learns that early March. And then at the bottom there it says, defendant understood that a principal foreign policy focus of the campaign was an improved U.S. relationship with Russia. So he's led to believe that the relationship with Russia is going to be a better relationship with Russia, something the campaign really cares about. And then on or about March 14th, he is traveling and he meets this individual who's a professor based in London. The professor doesn't really give a crap about Papadopoulos until he finds out Papadopoulos is working for the campaign, and then he's interested in him. And then it says again, the Papadopoulos was interested in the professor because he claimed to have substantial contacts with Russian government officials, and Papadopoulos thought he could increase his importance as a policy advisor to the campaign. So again, he's not told to go set up these meetings with the Russians. It seems from the indictment like he's just trying to help himself by setting up these meetings, which is not reported in the mainstream media. Again, on March 21st, the campaign tells the Washington Post that Papadopoulos is one of 5 foreign policy advisors. So then we have Papadopoulos doing meetings with this Russian professor and this woman who he thinks is Putin's niece. And then in April we have him. Early April he sends multiple emails to the members of the campaign. No, sorry, he emails. He worked with the professor and female Russian national to arrange a meeting between the campaign and Russian government, and took steps to advise the campaign of his progress. So he's already talking in April about setting up a meeting. He's trying to work with the campaign on this. And then there's more stuff, more meetings, more contacts. And then on April 25th, he messages a senior policy advisor for the campaign. And he says the Russian government has an open invitation by Putin for Mr. Trump to visit when he is ready. So he's trying to set up meetings. So he's been trying to set up meetings for weeks. And then, only then on April 26th is when the professor tells Papadopoulos that he learned that the Russians had obtained dirt on Hillary Clinton and that they have thousands of emails on her. So that's the one time this comes up. And then Papadopoulos keeps trying. The rest of it is he keeps messaging the campaign. He keeps trying to set up meetings between the campaign and Trump and Russian officials and Putin. But he never mentions the emails, the Clinton emails. It never comes up. And then it says the trip proposed by Papadopoulos did not take place. So he tried for several months to set up these meetings. They never happened, as far as we can tell. And then the FBI interviewed him in January of the next year, and he made those false statements. So I'm not seeing any. To me, when you read through that, sure, he lied to the FBI, and that's bad, but To me, there's nothing there which suggests the campaign was trying to collude with the Russians. There's just nothing there. There's an advisor trying to set up a meeting to maybe help himself. And the nature of the meeting is not about the emails, which is very misleadingly portrayed by the media. They make it sound like, oh, he heard about that the Russian government had dirt on these emails and he tried to set up a meeting. That is just not true. He was trying to set up the meetings well before he heard that one time that they had that supposedly they had dirt on Hillary. And according to the indictment, he never brought up those emails and that potential dirt with the campaign when he would try to set up these meetings. At least according to the indictment, it was never brought up. They never mention it being brought up. So anyways, that's all I have to say on the matter. I just wanted to get some clarity out about this because you're certainly not finding it in the mainstream media these days. But look, I encourage you again, go read this indictment. You can find a link to it on my Twitter. Go read it for yourself. Beth Trojanowski says, Hillary lied. What happened to her? Also, it is plain to see this Papadopoulos guy was working for Hillary to set Trump up. And as I said before, I don't think his behavior here is what somebody would do if they were trying to set Trump up. He's not. He seems to be just trying to set up a meeting to help himself. If he was trying to set Trump up, it seems to me like he'd be writing to the Trump campaign saying they have all this dirt on Hillary and they want to affect the election. And that's not what he was saying in his contacts with the Trump campaign in the indictment. Tom O'Neill writes in, Steve, is there any relation between George Papadopoulos and Mr. Snuffleupagus? Not that I'm aware of, Tom. Looks like they're serving up another nothing burger for lunch with fries, apple cider, and pumpkin pie. Sesame Street is on line 1. Have a ghoulish day. Happy Halloween, everyone. RSBN rocks. # lock her up. Thank you for writing in, Tom. Greg Jackson writes in, since the typical opposition research hadn't worked on Trump, such as the tape, it may be the Democrats decided to create an opposition research that had more authenticity, hence a dossier. Isn't it interesting that the players of Fusion GPS are the same ones that were part of the Trump Jr. meeting? And then this Papadopoulos also wants to have contacts with Russians. There is the cover-up of Uranium One and the Gulf Tanner port deal, Saddam Hussein's nuclear engineer and North Korea's miniature nuclear weapon with Russian container missile launchers that can be hidden in cargo containers at these ports. One person involved with the DNI and national security for CFIUS stated Clapper disbanded the DNI's role in CFIUS regarding national security. That's from Greg. Thank you, Greg, for writing in. Okay, I think we're going to wrap this up now because in a few minutes, the White House press briefing is going to start with Sarah Sanders. So thank you for joining us for this broadcast. Thank you to the moderators for doing a great job as usual, moderating both here and on the website. And thank you for all your messages. And if you like Right Side Broadcasting, subscribe to us on YouTube and click the notifications bell so you know when we're coming on the air with our live videos. Follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting, on Twitter at RSB Network, and where else? Oh, you can follow me at Lookner on Twitter. I post breaking news stuff all the time. I've been posting about a lot of this stuff today, so at Lookner on Twitter. And again, we are viewer supported, so if you enjoy our broadcasts, please consider donating. Your donations keep us on the air. If you want to donate on any of our broadcasts, you can go to the bottom of the YouTube chat and click on the $ there. And even though small donations really help us. And also you can go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. And you can even get free stuff like this Right Side mug in exchange for setting up monthly donations. So if you want to learn how to do that, go to rsbn.tv/donate. Okay, going to wrap this up for now. I'll see you guys all, those of you who watch the press briefing, I'll see you in the post show for the press briefing. Should be an interesting one. For now, I am Steve Lookner for Right Side Broadcasting. Have a good day, everybody, and we will see you soon.